3, 4. You're live. Hello and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. Boy, I tell you, we got a great show for you tonight, along with my co-host, Dalibor Suchy. Thank you for coming.
Pleasure to be here.
I hope we get a good crowd in tonight. Of course, we're on as we always are, regardless if they got their updates or not. But I'm sure it's a Monday night here, so nothing else to do on a Monday, but talk about knowledge that people need to know. Put it that way, or
Mhm.
don't know. Maybe we should put it that way: knowledge that they don't know that we could discuss. And
Yeah.
and we're going to kind of carry over from the Smoking G Sharp show. So it's we had a lot of subjects there, but we're going to continue on with. But there was one that we wanted to bring up, and well, actually, we were talking about the times that situated the people. So I think we should go with the China flood thing that I was talking about.
hmm
And I have this old book, everybody, and this here is the American Antiquities and Discoveries in the West, uh, being an exhibition of the evidence, and it's from 1833. Um,
Oh my God.
so
Think
yeah,
about it.
it's
It's like I think Andrew. No. Andrew Jackson was around.
yeah.
Edgar Allan Poe was around.
Yeah. These things are. I mean, the West wasn't even. I mean, they were just coming into Ohio, and
Yeah.
the Mississippi River was the East and the West, and the Indians were still. I mean, they just started the fur trade. The rendezvous in um, out west there. The trappers
Yeah.
were still out there, wild as can be. The Indians probably some of those Indians never even seen a white man in 1833.
They didn't even have the Wild West back then because don't forget that the events of, let's say, a fictional TV series Bonanza didn't happen until 1860.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's like,
Well, exactly. Most of the West stuff actually started after the Civil War. I should say, most of it, uh, because of all those people after the war. They had nothing. Their homes were burned. Their land was taken. They got nothing to do. And what's better to do is go out west and pan for gold. Go out west, stake your claim and to a new state, and
Mhm.
establish yourself all over again. And so the westward movement began.
Yeah. So it was a search for new opportunity,
Yeah.
basically, because it was unlimited land, which meant that if you wanted to be a rancher, it was like the easiest thing in the world. Just get two cows, a male and a female, and just get
Hmm.
enough land, fence it all off, and let
Hmm.
nature take do its thing.
Yeah, and they did. And at that point, um, well, they were killing off all the buffalo, making room for the cows, and
hmm
that's what was happening. They were replacing the cattle ranches. They were doing open range
hmm
and free grazing, and then the people moved out, there in the 1865, 70, right in that area. And they were those little small farms doing just what you said. I got 3 or 4 cows and I'm going to grow a herd. But
hmm
that big cattle rancher who had the open range was all pissed off because that guy, he's got 100 acres and he fenced it off, and now I can't pasture my cows there, you
Yeah,
know
because it's too big, and you didn't have enough employees, so they had to come up with a plan to get people to move out there,
Yep.
as basically, uh, to help out the people that had moved there in the first wave, and that was the real reason behind the so-called gold rush of 1849.
Hmm.
That some people say that it was largely orchestrated by the news media or newspaper media of the
Yep.
time, where the whole Sutter's Mill thing is kind of a bit questionable. Where yes, they did discover gold there, but back in those days, there was a lot more gold to be discovered on the surface,
Well,
where
and
it wasn't that rare.
they'd already gotten gold out of there. The Spanish were there. They
Yeah.
already had gotten gold. They just, like you said, they publicized it. Just like with in a Montana area, in the Badlands, and in South Dakota. Oh, there's gold in them there hills, and all the people came through on the Bozeman Trail to get to the gold fields out there, which
hmm
was directly in the path of the Indians and basically the Lakota there had to go right through their area. And what they didn't like was mainly that the settlers brought their junk, they littered, they shot all the animals within several miles of the trail, they killed the buffalo, they brought their cattle, which gave the buffalo diseases, and they died.
Hmm.
And the
Yeah.
Indians lived off these wild buffalo, which were kind of like their cattle herds, but now they're dying and they're getting shot all off. And then you got the buffalo hunters out there at the same time, and you got these prospectors going in the Badlands, which was their sacred ground.
Hmm.
I mean, it was just a bad cocktail of us. But and who sponsored all this? Do you know who sponsored all this?
No.
The government. The
Oh, the government.
government,
Yeah.
yeah, went
Yeah.
out there and sent
Hmm.
their military guys to go see if there was really gold, and then came back and said, "Yep, there's gold out there." And then of course
Hmm.
they publicized it, and the herds of people
Hmm.
came pouring in left and right.
Yeah, and with the settlement came the railroad, and that brought even more people over there.
Yep,
And it was just a chain reaction, basically, where
yep,
more people would move out there. They'd get they'd get rich quick, and then they'd send letters back, bringing even more people.
yep.
So it was kind of like a constant avalanche of people coming over.
Yeah, yeah, and it was, and they were literally killing all the animals as they went too, which was terrible. Like the train. So you mentioned the trains; they would have a flat car, and people would get their guns and stuff, and they would sit on the flat car and shoot at the animals as they rolled down the tracks.
Yeah, yeah,
I thought, what?
yeah.
And Buffalo Bill, you've heard of Buffalo Bill.
Oh yeah.
There was another guy named Buffalo Bill, and they had a competition, and their competition was to see who could keep the name Buffalo Bill by shooting the most buffalo in one day.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it was a sum of like 250 buffalo. One beat the other by just a small amount. But I'm thinking, so you two guys went out there and killed 500 buffalo in a day? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh! What did you do with them? Just let them sit?
Just let, yeah, yeah, that was disastrous when you think about it. But then again, some people say that Buffalo Bill or the original Buffalo Bill, he was like also another like marketing guy whose design whose main purpose was to get people to want to move out there,
Mm,
who popularized that whole lifestyle, that cowboy western lifestyle. He even went over to Europe
yeah,
with his
Wild West show.
traveling show.
Yeah, well,
So
and then the thing was is they he was popularized later, after he did his scouting, after he was on the Pony Express, all these things, and then they put him in dime novels,
mhm,
and I have some of them. I'll put one of them up, and I read some story out of there too, and they're kind of cool stories, and and it's just a lot of fun to read, and they came out with pretty covers and stuff, and who wouldn't want to look find Buffalo Bill? Oh my, I want to go out west, I want to become a cowboy.
mhm. Yeah,
And
exactly.
and
Especially
that
like
wasn't the
the
only one.
desire
There was,
for adventure. The
yeah, so
Buffalo
so
Bill
here you
Library.
go. Yeah, yeah, Buffalo Bill Library, and you buy this dime novel or whatever it is, and you got this cool picture, and then and then
Hmm.
you got your little it's basically a little story about Buffalo Bill, and it's about 10 pages long or whatever, or 20,
Hmm.
just a few chapters, like I said, and just a little itty bitty magazine that you'd get for a dime, you know,
Yeah, yeah. But that's
and they
British, obviously, because that's pence. 2D is pence.
where is this?
Yeah, right
Oh,
there. Robin Hood Library, 2 pence.
huh.
Yeah, D is pence. And
Oh,
the slash would be shillings, which was 12 pence.
huh. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, see,
Hmm.
and you can see here, established in 1879. Here, get your ideal air.
Synergy. Synergistic marketing right there. Yeah, the
Yeah,
ideal air gun. 11 shillings, 6 pence, which meant that would have been 11 times 12, which would be 121 plus 6, 127 pence. So
wow.
you're looking at like half a dollar, 50 cents.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So for a gun,
Virgon. I know.
Yes. So
Yeah.
yeah. So I'd never realized this when I got this thing. I didn't realize this was these were from, these
Britain.
were copied from, yeah, because I know they had American ones, but I
Yeah.
didn't know that. Look at 2D.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
wow. I
Hmm.
just learned something. I would have never caught that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if they're all like that. Let's
That's
look at
why
other.
even in American English, the abbreviation for pennyweight is DWT.
Oh yeah, see now this one here says
That's
dollars.
American. Yeah. That's obviously American.
Yeah, so this one's I never, yeah, price 5 cents. I never noticed that other one. Wow, so there must have been a English version there
But
too.
yeah, but that
Subscription
when
250 per
yeah,
year.
yeah, but when you think about it, that was also marketing because it was designed to make British people want to come over to the Americas, to the United States.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But you see these flashy pictures like this,
Yeah.
you're like, man, I gotta read that. Holy
Uh-huh.
cow! I'll save my 5 cents up and price 5 cents. Oh my! This is
Uh-huh.
April 19th, 1902.
1902. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and
before
he was alive. He lived till like 1919, I think.
something like
So
that. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I've read about him.
I went. His grave is right along the interstate, and I stopped there one time and and seen it. It's on top
Yeah.
of this bluff that looks over the between the states or something. That's really cool. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, 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 yeah. Um, but anyway, very interesting stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
when you really start thinking about it. Anyway, back to this the way the world was back in old books. And okay, so it says history of China before the flood. I'm going to just skip over some of this stuff. It says the traditions preserved by many ancient nations in its earliest history on Earth and mankind before and after the great geological floods have desolated the globe and are highly interesting. And it just goes on, and it says the author is plainly that all the high hills under the whole heaven were covered, and that 15 cubits and upwards did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered. And it goes on, and it says here, traditional history of China, which speaks of two great floods, which desolated but did not overflow the land.
Well, see, here's the thing. Every single ancient culture has a flood myth.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Globally, every single one of them. So, what's up with that? Does that
But
mean that there were, such massive geological changes? Most likely, yes.
and
There's
they
evidence of it.
and they tell us what the changes are here. And it says here, it says the answer says that this guy, I can't even pronounce his name. It sounds French. Rafa Q, Refina Q, or something like that. There are two great floods of Noah and Peleg, 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 recorded in the Bible. The later, the flood of Peleg, or the Yao in China, was caused, he says, by a volcanic uh, um, uproar or something, parallelism, or as over the earth, and much less fatal than the flood of Noah or the UT in China. Respecting this flood, the following details were taken chiefly from the Chinese historians Lu Yu and Lo Pai, whose works are called Yi T or UC and Yuki, are partly translated by this other guy. I can't even name his name, Luxx or something. These say that the first flood happened under the eighth Ker, or period called the Lu Ti, and the first emperor of it was Qin Sang, about 3,170 years before Christ. So there you
Hmm.
go. But neither can
Hmm.
this be. The flood of Noah took place, they say, 1,656 years, but nobody knows. I mean, it's hard to, it ain't like they chisel and sew. This is 1,000 years.
Not just that, but how do you calculate backwards, right? If
Yeah.
you're using the birth of Christ as like your temporal marker, okay, we know that you can count from it going forward, but it's impossible to count going backwards unless you know what's going to happen in the future, which you don't, right?
Exactly, exactly. It says here that the Noahs took place 1,656 years from the creation, but which would therefore be 2,344 years before Christ, making a mistake of 826 years. And therefore, if there are any truth in the Chinese history at all, those historians must have altered in some flood before that of Noah. They're saying that Noah's flood is wrong because it's in the Bible, and I'm thinking, no, I'm saying maybe the Noah flood, they don't have a record of dates in there, but the Chinese kept good records.
Yeah, the Chinese did keep really good records. As a matter of fact, they recorded like the supernova that created the Crab Nebula, which happened around 900 AD,
Yep.
where it was not recorded by anybody else but the Chinese, because there
Yeah.
was no civilization around then that had the written word.
Mm-hmm.
Because ironically, the written word started, at least the modern version of it, modern iteration of it, in the Sumerian era, which was, some say, about 10,000, 12,000 years ago, around the
Oh,
time of
yeah.
Göbekli Tepe, except that
Mm-hmm.
it didn't continuously come on down to us through the ages, that it died out in some spots and was revived in other spots,
Mm-hmm.
which almost makes one believe that civilization was restarted or jump started not from one particular place, but in many different places at one time, following
Mm-hmm.
some kind of a global catastrophe that included a flood around 11, 12,000 years ago, around the time of Göbekli Tepe, which, as you may or may not know, is really weird because there's proof that they actually buried that thing stone by stone. They
Yes. And
wanted it to survive some kind of an upcoming imminent cataclysm.
yes,
And so, for that purpose, they just surrounded it in a big, huge mound. So,
exactly. No, go
yeah,
lay down. Go lay down.
yeah.
So this gets really more interesting. This here part is the next part that fascinates me. The flood alluded to by the above named historian did not, it is true, overflow the whole earth, but it was such that the waters did not return to their usual channels for a long time. The misery of mankind was extreme. The beast and serpents were very numerous, and being given together by the pursuit of the waters and also the storms and cold had greatly increased, which is true. If you flood the earth, the temperate zones are going to be all messed up.
Sure.
Uh, okay, the
Yeah.
Chin Sang collected the wandering men, or Chin Sang, that emperor, collected the wandering men to unite them against the wild beasts, to dress their skins for clothing, and to weave their fur for webs and caps. That which tells me that the earth was warmer, and that and then they're talking about here beasts and serpents. The mankind was extreme. The beasts and serpents. And what do you think is a serpent then?
Well, it could be. It could be a dinosaur. It could be,
Yeah.
a lot more than just a snake. Because here's the thing: you have legends of dragons in the Chinese culture and in other
Yes.
cultures, including my own, including my own hometown where I'm from. There's a so-called dragon of Brno, and you can go and see it. And you know
Yeah.
what it is? It's a
Uh,
crocodile. It's a
well,
crocodile. So,
yeah,
the question is, how did it get to Czechoslovakia? How did it get into the mountains of Central Europe?
that is,
Nobody really knows.
yeah. I mean, it's a good question. It's a good question. But then it says that, the wild beasts did dress their skins for clothing, which tells me that they lived in a warm, temperate climate, and to weave their fur into webs and caps. The emperors were venerated for these benefits and began a Shi or dynasty that lasted 350 years. And I'm thinking, oh my God, all this would suit very well to the character of Nimrod, whom we are much inclined to think that the Chinese historians point out instead of any king before that era of the flood of Noah. And, it's just kind of interesting that they say that, but especially when they're talking about serpents. And I'll read on a little bit here somewhere as it talks about where the serpents, they fought each other. And I thought there was okay. Well, it talks about these emperors and the dynasties, and They have ruled China over the course of uh, 276,480 years before Christ. At the lowest computation, and this will blow your mind, 96,962,220 years before Christ at the highest, with many intermediary calculations by various authors. So their two, time zones that or timelines that they had
Mhm.
before all of this. It
Mhm.
goes back. How do they, 96 million years?
But that sounds like something that L. Ron Hubbard would have written almost,
Yeah.
because how, I'm not doubting the fact that there may have been a culture around 96 million years ago, but uh, the chances of literally anything from them surviving, even stone, is very remote. I mean, I could see stone surviving, say, 200,000 years, carved stone or some kind
Mhm.
of a stone building structure, edifice, or whatever. But 96 million years, no, that's kind of improbable.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it is. It's very improbable,
But
but
that other figure, that 196,000 years or whatever, that, or
yeah,
296,000
it's
years,
276,480
that's it.
years.
Yeah,
And
that corresponds with the theory that was put forth by what was his name, that researcher Lloyd, um, the one with the Star Child skull, who
oh,
DNA
yeah, yeah,
sequenced it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
he theorized that the Anunnaki intervention into human genetics happened around 300,000 years ago.
Well, doesn't that one King's List talk about how these
That too.
emperors ruled, and each one ruled for like 30 or 40,000 years apiece?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, which added up to about 250,000 or 270,000 years.
Actually, it was more. It was like 360,000 years.
Okay,
And
three hundred.
the Egyptian kings list
Mm-hmm.
that was recovered is it ties in with the earlier kings list that came before that, which was made by the Sumerian civilization. In other words, they had a kings list that was very much the same as the Egyptian one, just that the names were different. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
Sophia. Hey, Mandy. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
yeah, good to see everybody.
yeah,
Yeah, Nina the Mystic. Yeah, what's up?
yeah. Everybody's in the house tonight.
Uh,
They're coming. But anyway, yeah, you're right though. These things have all happened. Our Earth is way, way older, I think, than
mhm.
we can imagine. So
Yeah.
this week I came up with this idea. I don't know, maybe the other people have already come up with it or whatever, and thought about it. And I kind of imagined, they were talking about pyramids. I've been listening a lot about pyramids, and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And then I wrote you a letter and I says, well, what if
Yeah.
somebody was talking about the Tower of Babel?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, if this tower was so big, who's tearing it down?
Exactly. Yeah. Who would be able to tear it down if it was big enough to reach the sky? And
Yeah.
plus, if you were to construct a tower that could reach the sky, you wouldn't build it as like a cylindrical shape, because cylindrical shapes like that don't normally occur in nature, at least not commonly. Because if you take a cylinder shape and you balance it on the edge, like on a table, how long is it going to stay up there? Not very long, because it's only a question of time before somebody hits that table, it gets knocked over. So, the theory that the pyramids were actually the Tower of Babel does make a lot of sense, because all the evidence indicates that they built it uh, from the inside out. In other words, they constructed all those weird little chambers inside, like the king's chamber, the queen's
Yeah.
chamber, the grotto, the grand gallery, and then built it up in layers around it, where as they would expand it outwards, it would also gain in height. And
Mm-hmm.
for the longest time, I think about the 1800s, the pyramid, the Great Pyramid, was the highest structure in the world, the highest man-made structure.
Yes.
And it's very believable, because if you actually go there like I have, I mean, it's no amount of video evidence or photo evidence conveys the immensity of this structure, because it's just freaking huge.
Yeah.
because you come up to this thing, and the first course of stone is the same as all the other stones, even though they do sort of shrink as you go up. But the first course of stone is about chest height, and I'm an average sized guy. I'm 6'1", so and this reached up to my chest, and it's about the size of like an SUV.
Yep.
So these are pretty big stones.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They are just. I don't know if I can put, but yeah, these things are just immense. I mean,
Enormous.
yeah. And then you're thinking, and I've argued with my buddy. Here's some pictures of these pyramids out there, and this is what they tell us what it might look like when it was
Hmm.
being built.
Hmm.
And then the thing is what was the pyramid of Babel? What did they build the Tower of Babel for?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't
What?
even say that in the biblical text. They just
Mm,
said that they wanted to reach God, or they wanted to reach the sky.
yeah,
Okay, for what purpose? What would be the purpose of trying to get to the sky? Well, the same purpose that we put things in the sky for, like satellites or satelloons. What are they? Those are basically antenna. What do we put them up for? For telecommunications, for
or there's one other thing that we do with
radio.
things. Yeah, no, no, no. Well, you're missing it. You're missing it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I found the answer. I think I was listening today, and I think I found the answer to this. And it's going to blow your mind. So when they build anything nowadays,
Hmm.
and it's a big production,
Yeah,
who usually has a hand in it, and for what
government.
purpose? That's right. And what do they do with everything they have?
They subsidize it and they control it.
And they
Uh,
use it as a weapon.
they use it. That's true. Yes, they use it as a weapon.
E-
But
everything is weaponized. It's like, oh, we'll help you with the internet, but
mhm.
we're going to weaponize it. Oh, we'll help you build this. Oh, let's help them build robots. Are those robots really for us, or they doing that as a weapon? But did you
Yeah,
notice like these? Oh, we got these cool robot dogs, and now they're mounting guns on them. It's like
yeah,
you knew that was going to happen. Oh, we're never going to put guns on those robot dogs. Oh, now there's guns with robot dogs. And
yeah,
and everything gets weaponized. Oh, we're going to help build planes, but then we're going to put guns on them and we're going to use them in the war. So I mean,
yeah.
so whatever they do, they use it
Hmm.
as weapons. So just think of the Great Pyramid and say, we'll just go back with the story of the Babel and say they were building this pyramid. And I
Hmm.
always argued with my buddy and said, if the Egyptians did this, and I made a good point. I says, if they were doing the pyramid, you would have to have hundreds of thousands of men working
Hmm.
to move those giant blocks. Then you have to have thousands and thousands of people raising crops for food. And then you have to have thousands of cooks to feed those people. And then you have to have even more hundreds of thousands of people as soldiers to protect those people so that another country doesn't come in and say, you're spending all your resources building that stupid pyramid and we're just going to attack you and kill you, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and wipe out your
Exactly.
crops. So
Exactly.
this
If
pyramid would have been like the major focus and all the but now if you turn it into the Tower of Babel, that means
Mhm.
everybody was on one frequency. They were all talking the same language. Nobody was fighting.
No, the key here that you just said is they were all on the same frequency. They were
Yeah,
all using the same telecommunications system.
yeah.
And God or whatever force from outside split up the communication spectrum, just like we have it today. Like AM is different from FM, is different from PM. PM, by the way, is for television transmissions. And you got like
Mhm.
PAL, CCAM, NTSC, and you have cell phone signals, wireless phone signals. In other words, the telecommunications system got split up, broken up into different languages, quote unquote, which means that they weren't necessarily human languages, but machine languages. And
Mhm.
I would theorize that maybe from evidence that they discovered of the laborers' camp by the Great Pyramid, that there wasn't it wasn't like tens of thousands of workers there. It was a couple of thousand, but
Yeah.
that would be more in line with the geopolymer theory that states that those stones were not hauled from 600 miles away. No, that they were cast in place from a concrete-like mixture that they discovered and that we still don't know how to replicate. Because what they did was they sent samples of it without telling them what it was of the stones that make up the Great Pyramid, had it analyzed by different laboratories, and they all came back with the same result. It's concrete,
Yeah.
which explains the perfect fit that you get of one stone on top of the other, where you
Yeah.
can't even put a human hair between them.
Yes. Yes. Now, since you know a lot about the pyramids, what is the pyramid built on top of?
It's built on top of a bedrock foundation. What they did was they discovered like an outcropping similar to the Sphinx,
Yep.
and it must have been an irregular one, and they basically shaved it down so that it was perfectly flat.
Hmm.
For which purpose they must have used some kind of a water level system, or
Yep.
maybe just waited for the annual rains to come and make a nice puddle so that they could see the exact level.
Okay. What runs underneath the pyramids now?
What's underneath the pyramid? They say that it's built over an aquifer, but
That's right. Yes.
yes, but there's more than just the aquifer because they discovered like layers and layers of different tunnels that Herodotus talks about.
Yep.
And not just Herodotus, but it's referenced in various pyramid texts. I should say they call them pyramid texts, but they weren't. There were no texts discovered inside any of the pyramids.
Yeah.
It was more like inside the tombs,
Yeah.
or the Book of the Dead, where besides like that weird irregular uh, grotto at the bottom of the Great Pyramid, you
Mhm.
have organized like coherent tunnels going in rectilinear formation patterns that were
Yes.
discovered based on subsurface sonar radar.
Because
So
moving water creates a current,
yes, it does.
and
Yeah.
that the bedrock is crystals,
Hmm.
and that would naturally amplify the current. I don't know how it's all done, but I do know it is done. And there's a guy out there that replicated that. Can you
Hmm.
tell me who that guy was?
Wait, I know the name. I know the name. Oh, Christ, I can't remember it. He was an Austrian guy. You tell me.
Nikola Tesla.
No, no, no. There was
No,
a
no,
different
no.
guy. No, it was somebody
He.
else.
Oh well, maybe he didn't, but I'm thinking of Nikola Tesla because okay, so he used this and told everybody he did the same thing, and I'm going to present this so you can really see this. Okay,
Hmm.
here's Nikola Tesla's Radcliffe Tower. If you've never seen it,
Schaumburger.
Schomburger. Okay, maybe it was
Yes.
another guy. I didn't know, never heard of Schomburger guy, but I know Nikola Tesla had did this, and he see how the pattern is with the electric current here,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then he mimicked. I read about this, and what he was doing was he was mimicking the pyramids. He discovered this by looking at and following the pyramids. The underground water would create a current through the
Hmm.
bedrock and limestone, and then he tapped in. Basically, this is an upside down antenna. So
Yeah.
instead of sending your frequencies into the air, it sends the frequencies down to the ground and out of the air, and he would create free energy. Well, this was what they said, but I
Hmm.
don't think it's true because he was using this, and I read too that he said this was an energy weapon.
Hmm.
Again, with this what clicked in my head is that it was used could be used as an energy weapon, and Tesla himself said it could take down whole armies, and if used improperly you could crack the earth in half.
Well, that almost sounds like the Ark of the Covenant from Exodus, right? And
Yes.
here's the thing about the Ark of the Covenant: if you take those dimensions and
Hmm.
you actually measure them out, they correspond to the exact measurements of the inside of the sarcophagus inside the Great Pyramid at Giza.
Yes.
Okay, so
and
what's up with that?
and Tesla said that he was going to send the I forget what it was. Now, don't quote me on this because I might get a little bit wrong. He was going to send the energy around the world at twice speed or 3 times the speed of light.
Hmm.
And if you, or was it twice the speed of light? But if you take the height and width of the Great Pyramid, that's the same number as twice the speed of light.
Yeah, they say that the size and dimensions of the Great Pyramid correspond to the dimensions of the Earth and the distance from the Earth to the moon,
Yeah.
to the sun, and stuff like that. Yeah, I've heard that said.
So my thought is going back to the pyramid thing is okay. So they were building these pyramids. Say we had. I'm just imagining this,
Sure.
and because nobody really knows, they built these pyramids thousands of years ago. This was the Tower of Babel.
Hmm.
They were trying to make an energy weapon against a foreign invader
Hmm.
coming from somewhere. We don't know who it was or why. And we'll just say because they label it as God,
Hmm.
and obviously it had to do something because either that, like you said, either they were going to use it to transport yourself somewhere, but either way, it's a machine. These are machines.
Or
This,
either that or telecommunications, in which case that's a machine as well.
yeah, but
Yeah.
then this would have been the same thing. They were saying it's to transfer electricity, or is it a weapon? Kind of
Hmm.
like this. It would take down airplanes. It could do all
Hmm.
kinds of stuff. And what did the government do? What did the people do? They got rid of Tesla's tower. He split up
Hmm.
he tried to give it to different countries, and every they took his
Yeah,
papers and got rid of
they
him
wound
because
up,
of it.
yeah, getting rid of the tower. Yeah, they recycled it for metal and
Yeah,
stuff. But here's the thing: if the pyramids, conventional archaeology would have you believe that all the pyramids were built within about a 300-year period, around 5,500 years ago. I think that is incorrect. I believe that they're way older than 5,500 years. At least that's the intuitive signal that I was given when I entered it. That it's,
mhm,
add a couple of zeros and you get closer to the truth. The one thing they got correct was that they probably were built about 300 years apart to defend against an enemy. And okay, if it was an enemy from the heavens, what if that enemy was like a quote unquote god? And what if the name of that god was Yahweh? And
yeah,
what if he was like the enemy of humankind, but it was one group of people that made a deal with him, where he even said in the so-called holy books, I will be your God and you will be my people.
yeah,
Okay? See what I mean?
yes, exactly. Like, but that's what I'm saying is, this is before the flood,
Hmm.
and then maybe he couldn't. These people wouldn't cooperate, so he, did something. More powerful. He did something, spread them out,
Hmm.
destroyed the pyramids, and then nobody really knew what they were, and they couldn't fix them because they couldn't talk to each other, and yet the people still went out. And he said, okay, well then of course there's all these floods. Now, did this entity create these floods, or did they happen naturally? And then we, of course, we're
I think
stupid and
so.
we blamed it on him and said,
Hmm.
and he's trying to kill us now again.
Yes, I think so. I believe you're right that this entity may have used the natural disasters or created them himself and brought them about. This Yahweh dude or group of people, because don't forget they referred to them as the Elohim, and Elohim is a plural masculine word.
Yes.
Okay, Eloha being singular. Now, um, the other thing to consider is the fact that the shape of the pyramid itself is anomalous. And if you build a model of the pyramid and align it to north and south, you will get anomalous effects. These effects are very small. I've done pyramid experiments of my own, and it affects the precession of a gyroscope. In that, if you spin it at a certain rate inside the pyramid, it will spin about 0.5% longer than outside the pyramid.
Hmm.
Okay, that's what I've proven for my own self. Now, the other thing is you would get the same effect from any antenna. If you build a tall enough antenna, you can still pick up radio waves. That do you know what a crystal radio is, right?
Yes. Hmm.
Okay. Where if it operates without a battery, without current, without anything, just based on the natural electromagnetic waves that you can pick up from the air.
Yep.
Now, here's the thing. Uh, something if you put a kite in the air and that string is long enough and that string gets wet, you can actually hear radio based on the length of that string. In other words,
Mhm.
based on the frequency to which that antenna gets tuned to by its very length, you can actually hear slightly radio stations.
Yeah. Ain't that cool? Yeah,
Yes.
because the frequencies are out there.
Yeah.
Once you create that frequency, it goes out, and
Mhm.
they're putting out watts. Like the radio station will say, 50,000 watts of power coming at you.
Not just that, but the sun puts out the
Yes.
same electromagnetic radiation, and you can pick that up as free energy. If you had, say, a kite, that you could keep up in the air forever, and you grounded that between the ground and that string, you could get a measurable voltage, and that would be quite high.
Yeah.
Hence the legend of Benjamin Franklin and flying the kite during a storm, which could have killed him, by the way.
Yeah.
Uh,
But the thing is that something new, or is this something old? And here we're going to go again, and I'm going to share this, and this is maybe one of those things you already know about, maybe not.
mhm.
Okay, back you said something about the Ark of the Covenant. Okay,
Yeah.
and we'll just go with this one here. Now they say the dimensions of the we don't know exactly what it looked like, if it had all this crap on it or not, but they did say there was something on it. But anyway, the dimensions of the ark are the same as that big tomb thing the
Sarcophagus.
the sarcophagus in the Great Pyramid. So here's my thing: was this because those people back in the day didn't have that technology? Was this already in the pyramid, and then they took it out?
And as they took it out, they weren't too careful and they broke off a corner of it
Mm-hmm.
because it has a corner broken off.
Yeah. And if there was nobody in it and there's no lid, what was in there? Was it this thing? And when you're getting it out, they wrecked it. And then
Hmm.
that's the point. So then they carried this thing around. They knew it had great power
Hmm.
and stuff. And like what was it? So Moses basically what it was is, I think, is Moses stole this box with the great power, and that's why the Egyptian kings, and they were trying to hunt him down because they stole the power from the pyramid.
Well, yes, that's one version of it. The other version says that this thing could hover on its own, and they
Mhm.
were actually wandering around the desert for 40 years because they were following the ark, because that
That
thing
could
was moving around on its own.
Yeah, well, I mean, it could be a lot of things, but this thing here fit into the pyramid, giving the
Hmm.
pyramid power. But when Yahweh or the Elohim, to say, destroyed the pyramid, this thing sat in there until the Egyptians came along. They said, "What the hell is this? This is great power." Or maybe the pyramids were still working of some sort,
Hmm.
giving the Egyptians power to say
Yeah,
obelisks that are
yeah.
scattered all over the city.
Yeah,
You
because
know,
like I said, even a rudimentary pyramid will generate some power. You
yeah.
could still pick up something without any electronics.
Yeah, yeah, but and say this was a power source, and now
Hmm.
you're say this was the well, let's say this was the transformer,
Hmm.
and it sits in that the sarcophagus there, surrounded
Hmm.
by granite, which is pipe, and there's free energy underneath, and this is your transformer, and that beams it to the top of the pyramid, spreading that power all over the place.
Yeah. Okay. Now that's let's get back to the text. Okay, in the text that describes how to manufacture or make this Ark of the Covenant, it
Yep,
tells the steps, it tells the dimensions, it
yep.
tells you the materials and everything. Now, since language has been corrupted and morphed over the years, centuries, and eons, how do we know they're really talking about what we think they're talking about? Like,
Yeah.
okay, let's say me and you were talking about how to build a computer.
Hmm.
So you'd say, okay, get yourself a motherboard, get a chip, get like a 386, put it in the motherboard, get yourself a graphics card, put that in the motherboard, you know, and so
Hmm.
forth, and go through all the steps of building a computer. Get a
Yeah.
graphics card, get some Sims or DIMMs or whatever you're using for memory,
Hmm.
and okay, and that text gets preserved And then 2,000 years from now, somebody uncovers that text and says, okay, well, they're obviously talking about some ritual object here, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's exactly it. When you know, like when people find things for the first time, it's like you got to give it a name, and people are like, "Oh, I'm going to name that such and such because
Hmm.
that canyon is new and nobody's been here." Well, I'm sure there's people who've been there, but you're the guy that shows up and says, "I'm going to name this Jack Squat Canyon
Yeah,
because I'm the first guy." Well, I'm
yeah,
sure there was somebody there before you. It's just that they didn't put their name on it.
yeah. Or
And
the
you didn't
name
know what
didn't get preserved.
it didn't get preserved. Exactly. And just like this thing, yeah, we can measure the dimensions, we can tell you what it looks like, but really, maybe there's more to this box than just what you see on the outside, too.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
like
Definitely.
like Moses, he had a stick. Remember, he had a staff, and that
Yeah.
staff would do all kinds of things. And every time he always had that staff, and that staff was what was the magic of what was the staff.
Hmm.
And the thing is what was it filled with? Was it just a tree branch, or was it some kind of technology
Exactly. And
inside the stick?
yeah, just the mere fact that, when he returns from his second trip to Mount Sinai, which we still don't exactly know where that was, he comes back and he discovers the Israelites had gotten all their gold together and had started worshiping a golden calf that they had made out of all this gold. And he
Mhm.
got pissed off, and he burned this thing, okay? And he turned it to dust. Now, how do you burn gold and turn it into a dust?
Yeah, you can't.
You
Gold is
can't.
undestroyable.
Yeah,
It's
doesn't
it's
oxidize, doesn't yeah.
yeah. So then that boils down to the fact, did he use his staff, which has technology above and beyond what we can, comprehend?
Also, he would communicate with this god being through a burning bush. Okay, what is a burning bush? A burning bush is fire, right? What is
Yep.
fire in technical terms? Fire is plasma. Okay,
Yes. Yes.
so
Well,
he's
the
talking
real
to him through plasma.
well that in the story, if you really read it, I looked that up, and it was more like he went up there, and God said, okay, but you can't look at me. And when I'm going to leave the mountain, and he left in a big cloud of smoke.
Yeah,
And Moses came down. He was red after that. And remember, he had to have a shroud over his face after that. Well,
yeah,
did he get irradiated?
yeah, yeah. Probably.
He got irradiated because God was traveling in a spaceship. He
Hmm.
was irradiating everything around. That's why he says you need to hide in the corner over here, because Moses kept saying something like, I need to, you need to prove to me that you're real. I need to see you. Otherwise, I
Hmm.
ain't gonna keep doing what you want me to do. And he says, okay, fine. And with the cloud of smoke, he says, you hide in the corner here, because if you look at me directly, you will die.
Yeah.
And then of course the big, he flew, apparently he must have flew around. We call it flying around because we know he had a ship.
Hmm.
And Moses seen him, and he was irradiated. And after that, he had to wear the shroud over himself.
Yeah,
And
just the fact that even in the Hebrew language, the word for star is merkava, whereas the word for vehicle is merkaba, right? And B
yes.
and B is the same letter, but it depends on if it has a little dot in the middle of it, it's a B, and if it doesn't, it's a V.
Okay.
So there's linguistic clues as to that. But in the book of Ezekiel, that's also in the Old Testament, there's graphic, vivid descriptions of what we would call a spaceship of some kind, where
Mhm.
like they describe it as like a chariot wheel, then it had a wheel within the wheel, and great smoke and fire emanated from it, and great noise.
Mhm.
That sounds like a jet airplane of some kind, or some sort of flying vehicle that we still haven't discovered yet.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And it just says that there was somebody there guiding him too. He
Yeah,
was getting these messages and doing the bidding of this, entity.
Yeah,
And here's I got to share this too because this is interesting.
because
There's
don't forget that the stones that were inside the Ark of the Covenant were the first version of the Mosaic Law, which was the Ten Commandments. Even though that's kind of a misnomer, because there was actually 619 commandments. Those are only the top 10, so
the
they should
top
be
10.
called the top 10 commandments.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they had the top 10
top
back
10.
then too.
Exactly.
And this is the thing, so
But well, before I forget, don't forget that the first commandment says, "I am the Lord your God; thou shalt have no other gods besides me." In other words, the first commandment says you have to worship me.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And see here they're showing the picture of the mountain, and there's a big black cloud and the lightning coming out, and all the people are in the valley.
Hmm.
And so whatever's up here, he's going up the mountain there, and then when he comes back, he's he's this irradiated guy, and whatever picture I had here, as you can say, you see he's irradiated now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, they're in these pictures, these older pictures, they're trying, even in statues, they're like trying to tell you some story. They're trying to give you hints of what's
Hmm.
going on, and we're
Hmm.
just too stupid to really look
Yeah,
at them, I think.
yeah, yeah. Also, a lot of the other commandments, like commandments 2 through 10,
Hmm.
in Hebrew, most of those can be summed up in just one word. Just like in my own language. In my own language, if you were to say "thou shalt not," you wouldn't say "thou shalt not kill." You would say "thou shalt not murder," and that would
Hmm.
be one word. Okay,
Hmm.
nezavrashish. Okay, which means "thou shalt not murder."
Yes.
Whereas in English, you need uh, 4 words, right?
Hmm. Yeah. And they
So,
said, I listened somewhere where it said that the original saying of that wasn't "thou shall not kill," it's "thou shall not murder," which kind of
exactly.
makes more sense
Hmm.
because when
You have to
people go to
kill
war,
cattle.
yes, and when you go to war, we're going to war in the name of God. Well, that means you're going to have to kill people.
Hmm. Yeah,
But murder is when you kill somebody in anger, or because you know what I mean. There's a big difference
sure.
there. Like, I'm going to war, I'm going to kill the enemy, so I
Hmm.
can live and protect my lands or whatever, versus I'm just going to kill the guy down the street
Yeah,
for
yeah,
shits and
yeah.
giggles.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. um, yeah, there's big differences, and they give you hints in all these things. And I really don't think Moses was sitting up on top of that mountain writing these all down. Come on,
No, no. Basically, if you were to sum up let's say you were like a higher being, like a god, and you wanted to give humans a law by which they could live, you wouldn't give them a book, okay?
No.
It would be something you could put on a business card, and I would say that, do unto others the way you would have unto them, you would fit the bill pretty much. Where if everybody lived that way, the world really would be a better place.
Hmm.
Live and let live, basically.
Yes, yes, exactly. Live and let live. um, it's just so fascinating because all of this stuff has happened. People
Hmm.
forgot, they wrote it down wrong, people changed
Hmm.
it throughout the years, and then here we are in the 21st century, and we're trying to figure it all out because it's so messed up.
Yeah, it makes so little sense because we can't rely on the fact that those translations of those original documents are accurate.
Yeah.
It's only by analyzing. Normally, if you collect books or whatever, you realize the fact that the first edition of any work is critical. It's important because that was the original edition that had come out.
Yeah.
It's only later that it gets modified or adjusted based on the political climate or whatever. So, the ideal would be to get the first edition of the Bible, preferably one that's signed by God,
Hmm. Yeah.
signed first edition. But there is no such thing because the oldest known documents that you could consider as being biblical in nature would be the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the
Yes.
Dead Sea Scrolls, those timelines don't add up because there's evidence that some of the books of the New Testament are actually older than the Old Testament. and some of the Old Testament works being compilations of other works, like the Sumerian works, like the Gilgamesh material, or
Hmm.
some other Sumerian sources. Uh, so we really don't know like where it all came from.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We don't know. And then they had the canon that they sat there and put all these books together into one book,
Hmm.
and they picked and choose sentences that made sense and things, and then they said, put their stamp of approval on it and said, this is where we're going to be. This is the truth, the only truth, and don't ask questions. And that's
Hmm.
kind of what it is. As soon as you ask questions, oh my God, people get mad. Don't you believe the Bible? God wrote it. It's written by the hand of God. No, God don't
No,
have hands. Man wrote it.
that was Polycarp. Polycarp was one of the church fathers back in the fourth century, and he basically picked and chose from among thousands of books. He picked these 66 books
Hmm.
to represent the Bible,
Yep.
and eliminated other more interesting works like the Book of Enoch, the Book of
Hmm.
Jasher, which describes the battle of the Rephaim versus the Nephilim, and
Yep.
all these like beings that were run around that the Bible only makes specious references to.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. So why would they make references to it when it's so unimportant?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, because it was covered up, it was hidden. In other words, it's a lot more complicated than what we've been led to believe. It's not just a great cataclysm happened 11,000, 12,000 years ago,
Yep.
but a series of cataclysms, and at each phase of that post cataclysmic era, humanity or civilization was bootstrapped by a remnant that had knowledge of those previous civilizations. Like if you were to find yourself in a Mad Max scenario right now with your knowledge of, I don't know, computers, technology, stuff like that, would you be able to build a computer from scratch, from like sand, glass, sticks? If you were like in a Gilligan's Island situation, would you be able to build a computer with like coconuts, bamboo, and duct tape?
Parts from that radio that we got on the island.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
one radio that the batteries never went
Never died.
died
Yeah.
in 3 years.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And they were still listening to it when they were rescued. It's like,
Hmm.
really? Okay, come on.
Hmm.
Yeah. See, now this is a spot. Um, okay, this here is a spot that would refer to the point during the time of Babel. And it says here, it is said that the history of China gives account that the state of mankind before the flood of Udi or Noah, because we were talking about that. So the Babel thing would have been built there somewhere, and it represents them as having been happy, ruled by benevolent monarchs who took nothing and gave much. The world submitted to their virtues and good laws, and wore no crowns but long hair, never made war, and put no one to death. You
Hmm.
know, and I'm thinking, okay, see, this goes what we're talking about, where if everybody spoke one language, we're on the same frequency kind of thing, you
Hmm.
wouldn't be fighting a war. You
Well,
wouldn't be
see, yeah, well,
you wouldn't be
that.
fighting each other. You would work together in harmony, because that's the problem with most people nowadays is, you got this group fighting against that group, and then, well, we don't like that group, and we're going to start our own group over here, and we got our own town, our own village, and we got a war with them, and you know
Mhm.
so
Well, even though
but
in the modern era, you could argue for the fact that we do have a world language, and that language would be English, and that we
yeah.
do have a global civilization where, the internet protocols are the same in every country. All
Hmm.
you have to do is, meet those parameters, and you could connect to the global information superhighway, as the term goes.
So
Um,
then
and
the question is are we getting back to that point of a one world language,
possibly.
and that at that point will the guys watching us say, wait a minute, can't
Hmm.
have that. These guys might be thinking on the same frequency, communicating too much, and we'll
Hmm.
lose our power.
Yeah, yeah, that could be it. Yeah, and there could be because this Yahweh guy, he even says, "I am a jealous God,"
Yes.
right? In other
Yes.
words, he wants absolute power. He wants everybody worshiping him, and
Mm.
he's generally, if you go by the description of what he did, he's generally the enemy of mankind, not the friend of mankind. You know,
Yeah,
so
absolutely. So you're right. Everywhere it is in the Bible, and especially in the Old Testament, he's kicking ass, telling people. Well, he doesn't kick ass. He tells everybody else to go out and do it in my name.
exactly.
I'll give you these lands. I'll give you jewels and gold, and I'll point you in the right direction, and I'll make covenants with you. Wait a minute. You shouldn't have to. God knows everything. Why is he making a covenant with you?
Yeah.
Why is he giving you lands? Did he like create him? Hey, I just rose that ground out of the water over there. I put some trees and flowers on it and some good animals. You go right over there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, see, there's a lot of things in the Bible that you could question, and that some of them are literal, and some of them are not literal. Some of them are literary techniques. Like,
Mm,
there's been theories about, say, Cain and Abel. Cain and
mm,
why would one brother be a hunter of animals or an eater of animals, and the other one would be like a tiller of the soil? Where one kills the other. Okay,
yeah,
wouldn't that be more like a different tribe of people, or where one was a tribe of ranchers and the other was a tribe of farmers?
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, where
absolutely.
the sacrifice that was made by Abel was one of animal, which God loves. Obviously, he's a
Hmm.
meat eating God,
Yep.
right? And instead, Cain made him an offering of some vegetables, which obviously he didn't like because he didn't
Yeah.
like vegetables too much.
Hmm.
So, and then the one brother kills the other and takes over that dynasty, and that's one of the origins or theories of the origins of the human race. That, in other words, the farmers of that time got wiped out by the ranchers.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And that makes a lot of sense because even when we started out with the Old West, in the Old West, when the rancher, like I said, when the farmers came, they put up their fences. The ranchers came in and they actually hired guys, like guys you'll have heard of, Tom Horn, who
Hmm.
went around and accused people of being cattle rustlers and hung them if they
Yeah,
did it or not. I mean, hey, you got a cow there, that one was stolen. We're hanging you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's as
Exactly.
simple as that.
Yeah,
I got three other guys here: judge, jury, and executioner. There you go. Put them on the horse and let's hang them today.
yeah.
And they would hang the whole family. The
Hmm.
man, woman, and children. Well, I don't know if they hung the children, but I mean, we're reading stories where they hung the whole family. Just
Hmm. Yeah,
why? You know?
yeah, yeah. Insanity,
Yeah.
obvious insanity. But then again, that's frontier justice, and frontier justice, doesn't have a whole backdrop of the garnitures of civilization and government that we have in an established society. That's also why, for example, Islamic law or Jewish law at that time, because they were wanderers, they were nomadic,
Hmm.
that the justice had to be quick because you don't exactly have jails that you can move around by donkey cart.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, which makes your perfect case for the Cain and Abel thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's what I'm saying is back. I'm just taking a more modern version of what would have been probably true at that time, because the one thing that always stays constant, I think, is the way humans operate.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, they're people are warring kind of people. You got to keep them fed to be happy. You get people that are starving, and they lash out. You start taking away their things. You keep them. You get them angry, and they will run over your city, looting and burning.
Yeah, that's why, like all the old cities, especially in Europe or even in the Middle East or anywhere else, all these old cities always had walls around them.
Hmm.
And that was designed to keep the enemies out.
Hmm.
To keep
Yeah.
because when all humans were hunter gatherers, just like rabbits don't have to fight because the food is so abundant and plentiful all over the place. When humans were hunter gatherers, they didn't have to keep all the food under lock and key because anybody could just go into a lush green forest and pick as much fruit as they wanted. But as
Right.
more humans populated the planet, there was less and less of this, so they had to cultivate it. So they had
Hmm.
to start, permaculture, fruit gardens, orchards,
Hmm.
crop fields, that sort
Yep.
of thing. And that had to be the produce from that, the grains and everything like that, had to be kept under lock and key to protect it from being looted by the enemy or other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
the first thing that anybody would have built would have been a wall and not a tower. Not a tower, because the
Yeah.
tower, what would you use that for? Yes, you could use it to defend from a distance if you had archers up top,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And but then again, even the best archer can't accurately fire an arrow more than 200 meters. That's been demonstrated.
Yeah.
So
And,
if you build it above a certain height, it becomes kind of pointless because you just can't shoot as far as you can see.
well, and see, that's another thing with the pyramids. They're not built as fortresses. They
No.
weren't built as there was no walls around those buildings. So it
Hmm.
wasn't like they were using, they're trying to protect somebody from coming in. Like I said, the reason governments build those kind of structures are for weapons or for some kind of control or maybe an energy thing. But usually it's weapon. They
Hmm.
weaponize everything, everything.
Sure.
And
Oh,
that,
the only walls around that area of the pyramid would be around the Sphinx, and that's what they call the Sphinx Temple,
mm,
which I think I've visited the Sphinx Temple as well, and that's where you have those classical marshmallow stone megalithic
yeah,
blocks,
yeah,
that are mirrored, from left side to the right side
yeah,
perfectly. That's kind of anomalous because that's, in my opinion, way older than either than the pyramid itself.
yeah, yeah. And that's the thing is there was to me, I'm thinking that there was a society there that if you go by the Chinese thing here, it basically saying that there was harmony on earth. And if there was
Hmm.
people in China and dynasties there, there had to be people in other parts of the world doing other things too.
Hmm.
And who's to say that they weren't in Egypt building things? They
Exactly.
built the Sphinx and then said, "Hey, we're in harmony here, but we got an invader here, this Yahweh guy, and we want to, we got to protect ourselves. How do we do
Yeah.
that?"
Well, exactly, and the end result of some kind of a global cataclysm resulting that would have come about after that would be the same as what we see today. In other words, what we see is remnants of texts from various spots on Earth, individual disjointed spots, but not the whole picture.
Yeah.
Because let's say like we had a Carrington event that would happen that would destroy the internet. Of course, it wouldn't destroy all the computers, but it wouldn't wipe out all human knowledge. It was just like fragmented because
Hmm.
not all the information on the internet is held on all the servers. So
Hmm.
let's say it wiped out every place except, let's say, Panama, right?
Yeah.
So only the information that would be on the servers that are located in Panama would then gradually spread out to the revived internet post cataclysm.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and that's the thing too is there was more that there's pyramids all over the world, but if
yeah,
you ever notice, and I've seen these ones, I'm trying to find them right now. Them ones, they're pyramids, but they look a lot of them look destroyed,
yeah.
and I'm thinking, well, maybe they built a bunch of these things, and when whatever happened, um,
Well, even
destroyed them
even
because you'll
in the
see the big rocks just this
yeah,
perfect nice pyramid and the rocks are just chunked all over the place. I'm thinking
yeah,
you didn't have dynamite or something to blow them rocks off. Nobody's
yeah,
going to get their armies over there and say, "Hey, get the ropes there and just move that one rock." Yeah, and then they'll put
yeah.
it over here and you got 40 guys chiseling on it.
Hmm. Yeah,
You
a good example of that is right on the Giza Plateau, where you have that third pyramid, the smallest one. I
Mhm.
mean, that thing looks destroyed because it looks like there's a big just gash in the middle of it.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I'm trying to find a picture of that one, but I'm
Yeah,
gonna look at it.
I mean,
Okay, so
granted, the first person to break into the Great Pyramid in the 7th century was Al Mamun, and he went there looking for treasure. because
Mm-hmm.
he actually believed that there was like a pharaoh buried in there, along with all his gold and treasure.
Yeah.
And of course, when he busted in there, what did he find? He found pretty much exactly what's in there right now, just the sarcophagus. But he also found a wooden ruler, and a piece of glass that was anomalous to him, that could be bent without being broken, and
Yep.
that was like really lightweight, which sounds like a piece of plexiglass almost.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure they don't that piece disappeared. I'm sure. But
Yeah, it did disappear.
wasn't it one of the Egyptian rulers wanted to get in there and he spent took hundreds and hundreds of men and they took down some of the stones, so the pyramids got a big gash in it, but they never got into it.
Yeah,
I forget
yeah.
which
I'm
pyramid
not
that.
seeing it here, but it's the third. It's the smallest pyramid, and it's only visible from one of the sides. But I seen it
Yeah,
in real life when
yeah,
I went around it.
this one here, and there's that big gash right here. And
Yeah.
I don't remember where. Well, if I could find a better picture of it, they don't like showing that picture,
hmm
you
hmm
know. But yeah, like I said, none of it makes any sense. That you know, because yeah, here's more pictures of the pyramids. But yeah, like I said, there's something happened, and you don't
hmm
destroy a giant pyramid like that by many men pulling blocks from it.
Yeah, that's too much effort. Yeah, that's way
Yeah,
too much effort.
yeah, because if it looked like this, say it looked like this thing,
hmm
you're going to get your guys out there. Well, okay, guys, start working on that. And, it's,
hmm
like you said, it's one of the tallest structures where you get up there with your ladders and your pickaxes and you start hauling it away like this. Oh boy, we're going to get our hundreds of guys and roll it on sticks and with your
Yeah,
little mule over here and heave ho, guys, up that big ramp. I love how they
yeah,
make these pictures up that big ramp. I'd be looking at it going, just
hmm
kill me now.
yeah.
Just kill me. I don't want to go up that ramp. Kill me
Not
now, guy. Whip me to death right
yeah,
here.
not just that, but it's also the physical impossibility of what you're seeing right there. I
Yeah.
mean, not necessarily the holding it up the ramp part,
Mhm.
but the putting it in place part, because each one
Yeah.
of those stones, okay, weighs about 70 tons. Now, if
Yeah.
you do the math, okay,
Mhm.
and it's the size of like a big SUV,
Mhm.
how many guys can you fit around an SUV? Okay, can you fit 50 guys and in other words, 100 hands around that thing to set it in place
Yeah.
without destroying their fingers, right?
Mhm. We don't care. We just get rid of their face. They're probably stuck in there.
Yeah, they left their fingers behind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then here's pictures that are from other places and
that's the Sudanese pyramids. Yeah, from the region that they used to call Nubia, Nubia being modern day Sudan,
yeah.
which is south of Egypt.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, they also called them at one point the Kushites.
Hmm. Yeah. See, now look at this pyramid here. What,
hmm
people went in there and just started taking blocks,
Yeah,
pieces out? No, look at that. It looks almost melted or blown apart.
yeah,
And the ones in the background you can see these. You don't start at the top taking it down like that. For
yeah.
God's sakes, these are huge, giant things. No, get the guys, get the ladders, and start pulling the box out.
Yeah, yeah, and also a lot of the Nubian pyramids, they're not only steeper angled than the Egyptian ones, but also a lot of them have like black marks on them, like scorch marks.
Yeah, like you can see these. This is just black in here.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah,
like it got struck by some
laser.
kind of. Yeah, see, look at here. These ones didn't get hit, but look at these up here. And what the heck is like something came and blew those things apart.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because the rest of
hmm
it's good. Something that was done, I hate to say it, but it's done by a weapon. And
Yeah,
that means that these were weapons.
yeah, yeah.
Because
Most likely.
if you were an army, you're going to fight a weapon with a weapon. You don't go and, well, we're flying over with our planes. We're going to bomb the city while the big guns shoot at us. No, you're going to bomb the big guns so they don't shoot at you.
hmm Mhm.
it,
Yeah.
it just makes sense.
And in the pyramid texts or the ancient Egyptian texts, there is one reference to like King Cheops or whatever building the Great Pyramid and him taking 22 years to do so.
Hmm.
Well, that's blatantly impossible.
Yeah.
And my theory is that he, along with the other ancient Egyptians, discovered the pyramids. They were
Yeah.
around way before them, and they just repaired the casing stones that were around them
Yeah. Maybe
because
they were
that's
all covered up by sand at that point. Who knows?
that too. Yeah, that too. Even though there's evidence that that was actually wetlands because there's
Mhm.
evidence of water erosion on the Sphinx.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. Look at these pyramids. They
Hmm.
are literally whacked off from
Yeah,
the top, and you can
yeah.
see that the sides are perfect yet. And they and what does the scientist say? Oh, that's erosion. They've been there so long, they're eroding.
Hmm.
Nothing here erodes. It's
No,
dry. It's dry. It doesn't
yeah,
rain, and when it doesn't rain, it doesn't erode. So don't give
exactly.
me that.
Yeah.
Um, and like I said, there's just too much to question out there to say. But what happens is that I think the common man looks at that. The scientist guy stands up there with his white coat on, looks at the people and says, "This was done by millions of years of erosion, and
Hmm.
now today we find these pyramids and the people took the stones off of there to build their houses and buildings that they occupy in this day and age." There you
See,
go.
a lot of people neglect to see the obvious. The biggest buildings in any society are always like government buildings, right? If you
Yes.
look at, say, the Capitol building, that is a huge building. Okay,
Yeah. Hmm.
all of Washington D.C., those are huge stone buildings.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
again, just like in previous civilizations, they're modeled after ancient Roman building styles
Yeah.
because you have the massive columns, you have the rotundas, just like the Romans had. Uh, the Capitol building is a great example of that. Uh,
Mhm.
it's uh, it's ancient Roman to the core. Even the
Yeah.
style of statuary inside there, that's Roman style statue, like that statue of George Washington, the apotheosis of Washington, where he's depicted as a Roman god,
Yeah.
you know, with a chest bared and just a toga, and you know.
Yeah. And then isn't that ironic though?
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, who does that stuff? I mean, why would you do that? And then you build him. You know, it's. Oh, I'm gonna look it up. That's George Washington.
Yeah, look,
Washington. That's it's just so. Uh, you
the
know,
apotheosis of Washington. Yeah,
um, uh, oh, there it is. Okay.
yeah. I've been inside the Capitol, and I thought it was like overblown, overdone.
Yeah, there we go. We can't leave tonight without showing you George Washington as a Roman god. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah, yeah. See,
and
that's
and
one
there he is.
civilization imitating another civilization. That's it. That's it.
Yeah,
See, he's
I
he's
mean,
holding the staff, or
yep,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. He's
He's
depicted as
he's
Zeus.
yeah, exactly. He's Zeus. Yes, exactly.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Yep.
oh my gosh, you can't make this stuff up, people.
Yeah,
You
and he
just
is.
can't make it up. And where's
is-
George Washington buried?
I'm not sure. I'm
He's
really not
buried
sure.
in the Capitol, right under the ceiling thing there. He is
Oh, is he?
he under there. That's where his tomb is under the thing there.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
No way.
So I don't even know how you. Yeah, because there's this thing, and then under that, when you're standing looking at that, his tomb is under the floor there somewheres.
Yeah, the
Uh,
rotunda. Hmm.
yeah, because see there he is, and then that's his tomb under there. That I do know. I've
Oh,
never been there, but that's where it is.
yeah.
Uh, um, maybe they'll show a picture of that or something in that order. But oh well.
And
Okay,
it's interesting that
fair enough.
Zeus was like the king of the gods, right? He was like the ruler, the main god. And it's interesting that the in Christianity, of course, you have Jesus, right?
Yep.
Where in it's actually there is no J.
Hmm.
J is like a modern letter, it's actually Jesus. But
Yep.
in Greek or in Slavic, Jezeus literally means he is Zeus. So
He is Zeus. Yes.
he is Zeus.
Yeah. Yeah. It's,
And
let's see.
you know, to this day, you're going to have people arguing about the identity of Jesus Christ or whatever. You know, put that past. He's a fictional character. That's like arguing about the skin tone of Hercule Poirot or Mickey Mouse or I don't know. You know,
Exactly. Exactly.
it's a story. It was invented by the Romans. It was used as a control mechanism against the Jews to keep them under control because at that time that was their most rebellious province. Because remember, they had their god, and nobody else could worship him. And whereas the Romans were pretty much egalitarians, where any civilization they took over, they also took over their gods, and they would worship them too. They would
That's
put them
right.
on par with their own pantheon of gods. And the Jews were like not okay with that.
Yep.
So, you know, they were trying to get from under Rome's thumb like from day one. That's why they were so rebellious. So when they figured out that Christianity was effective at keeping them under control, they decided to roll it out empire wide. And
Yeah.
that's how
They just
Christianity was spread by a government that was in charge.
exactly. It would have never spread if they wouldn't embraced it. And basically, I read places where, well, if you convert to Christianity, you'll get the government jobs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they changed all the statues that were, of the different gods and just labeled them with Christian god names.
Yeah. Or they convert that's right. Or they made them saints.
Yep.
A lot of these like old gods were made into saints. Some were actually made into demons.
Yep.
So yeah, it's very interesting. Like one of our Slavic gods, Radhosh, is a
Hmm.
statue of him. I mean, yeah, he looks like a classical devil, right, with the
Yeah.
horns and everything. Even
Yep.
though he's the god of plenty, he's the god of the harvest. He's got the corn, the horn filled with wine. He's got
Hmm.
the axe to
Hmm.
symbolize forestry,
Hmm.
and he's definitely regarded as a positive figure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
That is exact. That's so cool. That
Hmm.
is so cool. That he's it may look scary, but really you're right. He's a positive figure, just like Zeus would be, or any of them. Like they said that the like Mary is Isis, and
Hmm.
who else was there? Joseph, or one of the other ones. Peter is Neptune or something. It would have been all these different gods, and he's just painted them over a little bit, relabeled them, and then it was easy peasy for the people to convert over,
Hmm.
because you're
Yeah.
still, and as always, if you got a temple there, and you can see this in modern times, and I can, and I know this because in modern times, and just like in the olden times, there's a church there. Oh, we'll build our church right there too. Just like right now,
Yeah.
I'm sure in your country there, the church is going down, and a mosque is taking over the church area.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That
Or what's also very common is that in small villages, you'll always see like the church and the bar right across the street.
Yep.
Or in bigger cities, you'll see like the church and the Masonic lodge right across the street.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, they go hand in hand,
They
and
do. And so do the bars in a sense, because, if, as a former alcoholic, I can tell you one thing that every bar on earth is like a secret society of its own, where, what goes on in there stays in there. But at the same time, people go there for connections, for information, business,
yep,
uh, that sort of thing. So
yeah,
it serves the same purpose as like the standard run of the mill secret society, like the Freemasons,
yes, yes,
which
exactly.
is just like a bar without the alcohol.
Well, and that's so true because like when I came to North Dakota, I realized, all these little bitty small towns, for instance, and they all have a bar,
Yeah.
and that still flourishes today, even though all the other stores and the churches are closed. The bar is still going.
Hmm.
And I asked somebody that, and they said it was something about the little bars. And I says, man, it's amazing that every town, no matter how small it is, has a bar. And they said, yeah, because just up until recently, you know, they would literally use the bar for their town hall meetings. And
Yeah.
everybody would congregate there. It was the only place in town. They would go to church. They would get done. They would go to the bar. They would have their town hall meetings there. They would, and I'm thinking, wow, that's pretty slick, and
Uh-huh.
everything is done at the bar. Go
Yeah,
figure.
exactly. That's also why you have the bar exam, right? To become a lawyer. You have to pass the bar.
Pass
Yeah.
the bar to get the bar exam. Well,
Uh-huh.
anyway, we should wrap this up. It's been really interesting. I'm glad I got that pyramid thing off my chest. Because man, I had all this information. I got nobody to explain it to because I don't think I know anybody personally that I could sit down and have a good conversation with that would say more than a what? What are you talking
Yeah.
about? Who's that guy? A
Yeah.
pyramid? I don't know anything about that.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's I tell you, I can't communicate with a lot of people because they just have no I'm like here and everybody else is down there and in that kind of study. They
Yeah.
just
Well,
can't
see,
connect.
yeah, I used to have that problem too until I started connecting with more people. But then again, I've always had these esoteric interests, and a lot of them. I've had a lot of different interests over the years, and
Mhm.
I'm also a hands-on kind of guy. So, if I read about something like some experiment that Tesla did, I'd like to try this on my own,
Yeah.
or let's see if I could do this, or
Hmm.
just like the experiments that I did with the pyramids. I mean, I could go on and on about that too, because I only highlighted the most important thing, which is that it changed the centripetal acceleration of a moving gyroscope, of a gyroscope. Like, why? Like, in other words, what exactly is going on there? Which are those constants of physics that it change? Did it change acceleration? Did it change friction? Did it change what? What did it change? Speed,
Yeah.
velocity, time. Okay,
Yes.
because the one thing about the pyramid is that if you take a person and put him inside a life-size pyramid after 15 minutes and take a blood test before and a blood test after, you get radically different results. It's as if a different person emerged from there, despite the fact that you'll feel perfectly normal,
Hmm.
except that all those blood values after you exit the pyramid are better than the blood values that you had before that, like
Now,
triglycerides, all that stuff.
and now think about it, like we were talking about the arc being added to that as an extra power source and amping it up, or maybe
Mhm.
the water when the thing was actually working, the extra water flowing underneath, and then giving that thing more power. I mean, you're talking about just a pyramid structure,
Yeah,
but now add more power times 10.
yeah,
What do you
yeah,
get?
yeah.
Could you reverse aging? Could you walk into that pyramid, sit in there for 15 minutes and cure all your diseases?
I wouldn't put it. Yeah, I wouldn't put it past it because it depends. You could have a building and not know its purpose, and then you'd never find out the true purpose. Like, oh, okay, let's say 2,000 years from now, somebody discovers that Capitol building that we were just talking about, and in the interim, a lot of homeless people had moved in there, and but they over the years improved it a little bit so as to build like some structures inside it. So you come in there and it looks like maybe like an apartment complex of some kind, right? And without knowing what it was originally used for. And
Mhm.
yes, it was a center of power, except that it wasn't electrical power, it wasn't gas power, it wasn't friction, it wasn't energy. No, it was government power,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
different type of power.
Different type of power. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, is it amazing? Yeah, there is different types of power, but it's
Hmm.
all power in
Yeah.
one form or another.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I hope everybody out there got something good out of this as I did tonight. I tell you, it was a good night. Long conversation. Consider we were over on Smoking G Sharp, everybody, earlier, and go check out Smoking G Sharp.
Hmm.
Great show over there. Lucky if you could put a link in there, or Nina, grab Smoking's link and put it in the chat, please. Thank you, because I can't look. Anyway, it was a good show over there. She doesn't get enough views, and she needs more views. We had a great discussion about a bunch of different other topics, so
Mhm.
check that out. And thank you, Dalibor, for coming tonight.
Yeah,
It was
it
a
was a
spur of the
pleasure.
moment thing. I got off tomorrow, so I was like, I can stay up a little late, so
Cool.
why not?
Yeah, it's getting to be my bedtime.
Your
So
bedtime.
yeah,
Okay, well, right on time then. But
yeah.
thank you, everyone, for coming. Remember, I'll be back tomorrow night for Native American Myths and Legends with David Null. So, with
Mhm.
that, remember, go out and do something nice for somebody. Um, and remember, most of all, stand under a pyramid and change your body and your blood and everything and be the
Mhm.
frequency you want to receive. That's the
Mhm.
best you can do,
Yeah.
right? See y'all later. Bye. Peace, everybody.
Peace.